My name is Sunil Rao. I am the Vice President and GM for the consumer goods industry at Salesforce. Super excited to do this event in conjunction with CGF and with this highly interactive platform. I was just telling Rudy how it was very quick in terms of being able to use it to run around with all the years of experience playing computer games many decades ago. So I like to see how this technology is evolving and changing the way we interact digitally via Zoom, or at least in between Zooms, so that we can make these events more interesting and engaging for you folks, as we're all overwhelmed with an overload, I would say, of digital sessions. So once again, thank you for your time and joining us today. And I wanted to just, no Salesforce presentation would be complete without giving you the safe harbor, but I will be talking a little bit about some recent developments. This is nothing more than to say, make all your buying decisions based on software that is available today. Some of the other colleagues will also flash this up as they talk about items that may be related to roadmap, things of that nature. Once again, thank you. I'm going to be the first 15 to 20 minutes of today. I'll kind of give you an overview of how we're thinking about the consumer goods space, how customers are leveraging our technology to kind of drive growth and transformation within their enterprise. And a little bit about the news that I was talking about in terms of updates to our overall consumer goods strategy. And then all the subsequent sessions will be focused on either specific topic areas or functional areas within consumer goods, and with some examples of customers that are leveraging the platform. So to kick things off, one of the things I wanted to talk about at the very outset was really the change that we have seen, the structural change that we have seen in the CG industry over the last year or so. And all of you are very familiar with many of these stats that you see here. I think the articles here specifically are taking metrics from a few papers released by McKinsey, but throughout the course of the pandemic, these are not all from last week. These are from a year ago, 6 months ago, 1 year, 1 month ago. And they're kind of highlighting what we saw change over time. One of the first impacts, of course, in at least the modern trade markets in North America and Europe, was the moment countries went into lockdown, you did see a massive reduction in the number of people that were going out to meet customers, engaging face-to-face to conduct business. And that really forced a structural change in terms of how companies looked at technology that enabled their workers to work remotely, when historically they did always need to be in front of customers. Broadly, cross-industry, this was a change. But of course, in CG, when folks have a large number of field sales resources or folks that are going and doing the merchandising at stores, this was an immediate impact and something that we had a lot of customer conversations around. The second area was really on how companies thought about going to market. So we saw a lot of these direct-to-consumer ideas that they were kind of nascent. They weren't actually deployed yet, but a lot of companies took this as an opportunity to deploy or test direct-to-consumer capabilities. Most notably, there's a company that we work with that offered kind of direct-to-consumer chicken, right? You could order chicken online now and have it shipped to your house. Traditionally, what you would consider, you would always go to the grocery store to pick up. So it really opened up this thinking for consumers to be able to buy online. And then finally, e-commerce in general, I think the stat has been repeated hundreds of times, but the structural growth in e-commerce just during the period of the pandemic has exceeded that of the last decade. So obviously, a lot of consumers have learned how to buy online. And as a result, most companies are calibrating towards this, as I'm sure several of you attending this summit have seen and have started to make sure your strategies are aligned to this growing trend and need. Now, however, although these pandemic-induced trends have appeared, key challenges that we were talking to customers about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they're still there, right? And this is actually from a genericized version of some conversations we've had with a few customers very recently. This concept of agility, I think, once again, it was emphasized during the pandemic. We absolutely needed to be more agile, and companies still face this influx of a lot of competitors coming in and stealing wallet share, while simultaneously trying to understand how to stay competitive. The big CPGs thinking about how they become more agile so that they can be competitive, and at the same time, the smaller CPGs coming into a marketplace dominated by big CPGs. Once they're going into the physical store, how do they compete? right? So there's an interesting dichotomy that continues. It hasn't changed. I think the need for larger companies to continue to digitize their business, still moving away from manual processes onto online processes, connected processes, still a concept that is something that folks are looking at solving, hasn't gone away. I think the ever elusive customer 360, it's another topic. A lot of customers are still figuring out, how do I, in an ever growing array of systems that keep coming into place, how do I connect and maintain data? And there are some interesting technologies that have become available, both on and off Salesforce, that facilitate the sharing of data, that facilitate the maintenance of data and injection of data into different systems, mission critical systems. So how do we start thinking about a holistic, integrated way to do that? That's another topic that comes up quite a bit. Still a problem from decades ago, just continues to become more difficult as we find solutions. It also grows in scale. And finally, this entire concept of being able to conduct your business from anywhere, right? So the entire mobile first, being able to access your data, no matter what channel you're in, no matter what device you're using, being able to have a consistent experience, being able to drive a consumer grade experience for employees, for customers, for consumers. These all still remain challenges that companies are trying to solve, and areas that we continue to kind of work with customers on better defining and having product for. And if I simplify kind of those older trends or challenges and also the newer items we're seeing, really a lot of the customers we're working with are continuing to focus on, how do I transform internally? How do I make the employee experience better? How do I provide capabilities to the employees to better do their job from all lines of work, whether it's engagement, whether it's messaging. This is why we have made a big investment in Slack, the acquisition that is not yet to close, but those of you familiar with it, the kind of ability for you to interact with other employees at the company and to collaborate in a much more deeper way. We really see that as the future of work, when most folks are either physically available or digitally, and there's always going to be a mix moving forward. So how do you blend that engagement, that collaboration into the tool sets that you use? So that's one domain. The second one's all about the customer, the B2B customer, the retailer, or the B2B channel, and how brands can interact with them and give them a consumer grade experience. How do we give them the ability to interact with the brand in a more meaningful way, and also choose how they want to be communicated with? So that becomes another core area of focus for us as we work with our customers. And finally, it's about the shopper and the consumer. So once again, when brands are going direct to consumer, or they're not going direct to consumer, and they still need to understand the consumer, of course, how can we better collect data? How do we create moments of engagement where we better understand what the consumer needs and wants? And how do we leverage that information as a brand to get more intelligent about the products we bring to market, to get more intelligent about how do we optimize spend on media? How do we optimize the values associated with the brand itself and how it's marketed and projected outwards? So we really see kind of these three areas as focus points when we think about the front office, when we think about where Salesforce plays. And what you'll see today is really all these three dimensions in different capacities coming up in the presentations and the different customer stories that we will walk through. If I give you just another example of kind of, the current state versus end state that a lot of companies that we work with kind of move from, this is really focused on B2B, but once again, a very specific customer example that's genericized, very specific in the sense that they had these silos, right? And how they thought about the different functional areas in the business, but the concept of the customer was fragmented across the ways that the company itself saw the customer or served the customer. So, this idea of moving away from the left side to something on the right, which is much more connected, which connects the different capabilities together, which allows the sharing of data. That's inherently what we're trying to fix when we talk about Salesforce for B2B or B2C and kind of how we integrate these domains together. It's not just on B2B. We're also looking at how B2C plays a critical role in informing decisions that are made in this circle on the right. And that really is what we're here to walk you through today and discuss with you today, which is our Customer 360 platform, which has the capabilities across both B2B and B2C. And we're actually really excited because we just closed an acquisition this is fresh news of a trade promotion management and a retail execution solution on the Salesforce platform. It was a ISV solution that was built by Accenture. We have now acquired the IP associated with that solution. And since it's already built on the Salesforce platform, it completes and rounds out our functional capabilities on the B2B side. What I was saying was on the B2B side, really Salesforce has had a suite of capabilities across planning and execution. But the planning functions, the core capability that was missing really was the trade management capability natively on the platform. So our IP acquisition actually gives us the capability to do trade promotion management natively on the platform. It also enhances the retail execution capabilities that we had provided several customers. So once again, from a strategy standpoint, we're really excited because we do really believe we've got the best in class on the B2B side now, as well as the B2C side. And as we work to continue to define the future of the space by integrating these worlds together and leveraging our CDP platform, our customer data platform, to be kind of the unifying data layer between what we collect on the B2C side, but also the planning data on the B2B side. We're really thinking about how does this enable customers to kind of drive growth by leveraging the best of multiple channels, including the B2C domain. And as we kind of build this out, right, I think there are some core tenets. One of them is really focusing on AI as an enabler throughout the processes that exist. So rather than it being a toolkit of technology that you would pick and choose from, we're really thinking about it from the perspective of the route to market. So each time you have a different interface point in your B2B route to market, how do you make the jobs of the personas involved simpler? How do you make them more automated? So we're kind of picking and choosing the areas where we can make that process more intelligent. Of course, stipulated by the data that you have available and how you can kind of, define this so that it has the output that you expect. An example being optimizing where you send your field sales reps, optimizing where you send your merchandisers, right? So this is very loosely the capability that we call smart selling, which is part of the consumer goods cloud, one of our products. But really at a macro level, thinking of AI as an enabler throughout the processes of planning and throughout the processes of execution. So you'll see that appear through the presentations that we walk you through and our overall industry strategy. And finally, the last thing that I wanted to just leave you with is, we keep talking about B2B2C, but very concretely, now that we have these data sets that allow brands from a marketing standpoint to really plan how they manage their audiences, the marketing mix, the media mix, they're leveraging technology on the same platform that they can also manage their customer business plans. They can manage their joint business plans, the trade management, the store execution plans, and the actual data coming from in-store execution. What are the types of use cases that we can enable, right? So the future that, as we see it, given this set of capabilities across B2B and B2C, is starting to really think about how do I, on the B2B side, get really hyper-local about the assortments that I'm optimizing at a store level. How can I leverage data that's coming from the B2C side where I know the types of influencer campaigns I'm running, the types of dollars I'm spending for shopper marketing? How do I leverage that information to get better about making recommendations to specific stores or to specific retailers in specific channels when I have this information to share? How do I make it available to the salesperson or to the person who's having the conversation with the B2B customer, making all these activities visible to encourage them buying the product from the brand? And on the flip side, the concept of promotions that we always think about coming from trade spend, how do we start thinking about the shopper marketing budget and the trade spend budget and the interplay between those in a tighter way? So when you decide to manage the B2C channel where a consumer is buying directly online from the brand, is there a way to kind of blend those two together? Is there a way to think about that in a more holistic way? And overarching, just the evolution of the concept of revenue growth management. Like, what does that mean when you can bring in all channels to bear? So we think that this is the future. We believe our customers do as well, and happy to hear kind of your points of view and how you guys are thinking about it. But that was the upfront. I wanted to set the context before we get you into other sessions as you trickle in and out. I'll pause there. I know we're at time in case anybody has any questions. Okay, well, if there are no questions, then I believe we all can now jump back to the virtual world, if I'm not mistaken, Rudy.
Yeah, that's correct. So those of you who had some issues, you might want to pop back. My name is Rudy Hagedorn. Thank you, Sunil, for the great introduction. You will have chances to really drop by the specially prepared booth with kind counterparts to ask questions, Q&A. It will be asked go back to this Zoom room. Those of you who just jumped into Zoom, that's a shortcut, of course. We will put some music on. You might also wait here, but we really encourage you to go to the platform and network. So you will have received your access codes via Christina or sometimes in your spam mail. Anyhow, enjoy, and we're looking up for the next session. You will find the itinerary at all places, and also look up in your virtual room where you see agenda of the day and the floor plan. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Sunil.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you all for joining. So this session is all about connecting your customer experience specifically on the B2B sales side of that. So we're excited to have you guys here. For those of you that were part of the last section, I'll skip really quickly through this. It's just every standard Salesforce presentation always comes with a forward-looking statement. Please make your purchasing decisions based on commercially available products today. That's literally all I'm going to say about it. If you want to fall asleep later, we can give you this very long text to read. So thank you for joining. Sunil said it last time, we know that everybody's time is super valuable. There's a lot of these virtual sessions on the go, and I know that it takes a lot out of people to sit in front of a screen all day long. So we really, truly appreciate you being here with us today. So disruption is at the core of basically everything that we're talking about today. So Sunil mentioned yesterday that we do have 52% of a reduced in-person sales, which is definitely true. We're starting to see that come back a little bit in some specific areas, but largely people are deciding that they're going to reevaluate their go-to-market when they're necessarily going to go into a specific location if they don't have to. On the flip side, or it's not on the flip side, but also 89% of people that McKinsey had surveyed say that they're likely to sustain shifts as well too. So I know a few customers that I've been speaking with, it's actually even 2 to 3 years out, their changes in their go-to-market motions they're expecting to be somewhat permanent. There's going to be some relationship building activities, specifically when we look at alcohol and beverage. There's a lot of basically embracing of a new motion. People are choosing strategically to go build a relationship, but simple things like taking an order, people are realizing that digital is a lot better way to do that. But there's still some very manual stuff that's happening as well too. So when we look at specifically trade promotion management, 36% of people are still using spreadsheets. And actually, I would expect that 36 is actually more like 63%. It's probably a bit of a flip, but the reported numbers are 36%. So this is all just to tee up a really compelling conversation that we have planned with Tom Blackburn. Tom, I'll do a really quick intro, but I would like him to introduce himself because his background is quite impressive. Tom is the Chief Operating Officer of GreenHedge. So Tom, if you're here, please join the virtual stage.
Thank you very much. Can everyone see me? Is my video on?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks for the kind introduction. Great to meet everyone here, and love this digital webinar platform. My name is Tom Blackburn. I'm the COO of GreenHedge, which is a really young, exciting, fast-growing Canadian cannabis distributor. So we specialize in kind of selling the good times or moving the good time product across Canada. We operate across multiple provinces. We're not fully nationwide yet, but we're working on it. And for Americans here, that means multi-state. We work with multiple brands, and because the Canadian cannabis industry is fairly government controlled, we adopt a sales agency kind of type model heavily in most provinces, and has been a real pleasure of deploying Salesforce. A quick bit of background on me is before I joined GreenHedge, I ran corporate development for Origin House, which was acquired by Cresco Labs. I believe in 2019 is when we closed. beginning of 2020 is when we closed. And, in Cali, I worked with acquiring assets and integrating them from cultivation to manufacturing, and then a lot of distribution. So we acquired 2 distributors, integrated them, merged them to create kind of, one of the largest distributors in California at the time. So it's been a pleasure to kind of do it again here in Canada, and also start clean with Salesforce. Anything else, Michael, you'd like to touch on?
No, that's great. I always find your background really, really great. So it's nice to get a bit more intro. So one of the things that we spoke about when we first chatted, Tom, was digital transformation. And it's very obvious that people are going to chat about that with Salesforce, but the approach that you had was particularly striking with me. So I would wonder if you would tell us a little bit about how you're approaching digital transformation for your current organization.
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a couple components to it, but I guess I'll start with the first one would be digital first, and take a digital first approach to eventually building omni-channel kind of distribution or an omni-channel network. And I think, if you're small enough or you're mid-sized to kind of revamp and think about just rebuilding everything from a digital first perspective, I think you're going to be faster, you're going to be more effective, and you're going to build better, cleaner solutions that service your customer versus trying to kind of take what's already working in Excel on non-enterprise systems and try to kind of eventually upscale to an enterprise platform. And I think the second point I would make is go enterprise as soon as possible. There's an idea that you can kind of mess around with QuickBooks and non-enterprise systems to kind of get you there. But I would say that as soon as you know your business model and as soon as you know how you work with your customers and your clients, then you should start kind of thinking about deploying an enterprise grade system. Like, it's just a no-brainer. And, I think many verticals can get away with it. Distribution wholesale is the worst vertical to do that. And I would say go enterprise as soon as possible. And then the third one, and I promise that Salesforce is not paying me to say that, but the third one, and I've used this kind of mantra with our developers and our internal teams, is surrender to Salesforce. And, where I take requests and maybe kind of develop a solution, I try to keep it out of the box as possible and limit customization early on. And my thesis for that is Salesforce is tested by thousands of companies, and it's very, very well developed. Now, I'm not talking about adding a field or a custom, something you have to kind of add to bolster for compliance. I'm talking about custom objects and rerouting how Salesforce is set up. So try not to fight it, surrender with it, and kind of start from Salesforce first. And I think you'll find that your core comes together much, much, much cleaner, and you can kind of customize down the road or on the kind of outer layers in the data and the consumer engagement section. Anything else, Michael, that maybe you wanted me to speak about on that point?
So I always like to ask when, I guess I have a very similar approach from my background, like start with standard and then deviate where necessary. I was wondering if you could give us some specific examples of how you've done that. Stayed true to Salesforce, like you say, and then well, how do you make decisions and where you're going to deviate, and what's the strategic rationale for that?
So I think the only way you can really survive on that is, if you adopt an agile or lean methodology for deployment. If you're really big and you're doing top-down planning, I think you got to make sure your integrator really knows exactly how the system should work, and really kind of, in that planning session, compare, this is the Salesforce process and this is your process. What can we change to make this kind of a little bit better? Specifically for Greenhedge, we travel over multiple provinces and we deal with different pricing, right? So cannabis doesn't have standard national pricing. And, there was one option, we could build a custom object and we can kind of have multiple price books and some more information in here. And then we have a bulk ad product in there. And I said, no, Salesforce already has price books set up. Yes, they're restricted in some senses, but it's for good reason in terms of not breaking them. But we were able to tag all the specific compliance, SKU numbers, all additional data that's province specific through the existing price book structure. And what that did was allow us to kind of go from the national product database over to provincial or multi-state, kind of multi-jurisdiction kind of activities. And we're able to monitor sales, inventory, depletion rates, using Salesforce's like already pre-built data structure. And I can't imagine just how far we've developed it doing that from scratch. I think we would have missed a lot of opportunities for smoother, cleaner integration in there.
That's a great example. So how has the business sort of embraced those changes? Having been there before, the business side of the house typically wants a lot of changes, and the pushback to say, hey, let's try standard sometimes can be tricky. How do you manage that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it was one of my key kind of considerations on joining like GreenHedge is like, what's the sales culture like? And what's their ability to adapt to change? And I thought when I looked at GreenHedge that the people were good, they were hungry for it, and they saw it. So my advice was on the H1 horizon kind of deliverables, the best time to put a CRM is yesterday. And I think we've had good adoption, one, because A, we don't have that much track record of working on a competing system, and B, Excel is a nightmare. So they were quite happy to switch over to Salesforce once they realize how much time they spend it. So I think there's an adoption curve on the app and on the desktop, and you got to bring them along, but you got to sell them like, this is how we can save time for you. And you've got to listen as you build this to put a couple little nuggets in there that make their lives better, that make their lives easier, and then just focus on the UI and just try to minimize the number of clicks. I think that goes a long way to getting buy-in.
Yeah, that's hugely important for sure. So that's great, really good perspective. So what's next for you guys? Like, so Horizon 1, what are you guys looking at for the next 12 months, I'd say, even longer?
So we've really been happy with the deployment so far. And I would say our focus has been on the core, and it's like the 4 Ps of marketing is one, how do we maintain and manage multiple, we have like 400 SKUs now, right? How do we manage all that stuff? And how do we kind of work with our suppliers to manage that stuff? So that's done now. And we also use kind of the Salesforce portal, the internal user, to kind of just connect the customer exactly to us so they can see exactly what we're doing. So we got the product, we got the pricing, the discounts, the pricing to the provinces. We've solved the trade promotion management, and we have real-time distribution tracking for placement. And that's really the core that we've kind of built, and that's what we need to do. I think the next step for us is, I think we could refine the promotional and the trade activities a little bit more. I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to turn Einstein on now that we're stable and start getting recommendations for filling distribution gaps or making sales just innately in the app. And then third, we do use Tableau, and we do connect to multiple data sources and do a lot of extra like work. We're kind of picking up the breadcrumbs. And we think that's a really competitive advantage to be able to kind of pull it all together, use Salesforce as the data structure, pull all this external data together, analyze it in Tableau, and then push it back to the reps for them to make better decisions, or push it back to the suppliers for insights on how their products are doing and how they can improve their sales. I think those are the 3 core things, as well as we can use the platform for direct customer digital marketing and kind of bud tender marketing, who's kind of like the person that serves you at the dispensary. We do a lot of education and retail engagement. I think we're just getting better at using the digital marketing aspect to connect more and do more online training sessions and product knowledge sessions on behalf of our brand. I'm sorry, that was a long answer, but there's a lot of stuff to do, but we're really excited about kind of getting there.
Yeah, and ambitious plans, which are going, I think you guys are set up well to succeed on those as well. So it'll be really exciting to follow you guys as partners in this journey. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you.
Great. So Tom basically summarized this entire slide, which is really good. So one of the ways that we always talk to customers about is delivering agility and growth on a unified platform. So one of the true secret sauces that we really believe that we have at Salesforce is the unification about all these processes. So when we talk about Excel and using Excel sheets and things like that, I've been a consultant with numerous companies where to generate a 1-week forecast takes 3 weeks because you're aggregating Excel sheet after Excel sheet and PDF documents and pulling data from various different sources. And it's very often that type of stuff is accepted, and it's just it's not really a good situation. Everybody just kind of lives with it and knows that it's wrong. But the unification unification of all these disparate processes onto a single platform is really where we see a lot of our customers like GreenHedge really unlock strategic value in their companies. And in some cases, they can actually really supercharge growth when they're doing that. So I thank you, Tom, for kind of explaining how GreenHedge is doing that, which is really kind of exceptional. All right, well, thank you, everybody. We can give you some time back to network virtually, which is pretty interesting in this new platform. It's always like playing a computer game, like Sunil said. But yeah, thank you very much for joining. If there's any other questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you, Tom, for joining us. It was excellent to hear from your perspective and how you guys are really accelerating at GreenHedge. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
So welcome to our session on incentivizing channel partners. I hope if you attended the previous session, we talked about, the connected customer experience, and it was all about managing those relationships through the unbroken B2B journey. So now we're going to discuss on how to basically create the nudge mechanisms across this journey. And then we'll also hear from Donna Mull, which is CRM Director of Omnichannel at Raccoon Shoes, after doing just a couple of slides. So before I start on this slide, just a quick statement on making purchasing decisions based on products and services that are currently available. And now on to our session. So we all know that channel partners are a critical component of our business success, right? About half of the revenue typically comes from indirect sales, from what we've seen. And it's becoming increasingly more complex to manage those channel partners. As on average, you see about 176 channel partners collaborating with brands, and that's not even mentioning those who are captive or loyal to the brand, which wouldn't make a move of suppliers if something more advantageous came by. And for many marketeers, this is very hard to manage, because even though some of these partners may be like shavings, those shavings end up making a significant pile at the end of the day. And now, beyond even like the quantity of partners that you have to manage, when you look at each distributor, each broker, they have their own corporate culture, right? Their own varied employee demographics. And we see a lot of trends, stemming from that. So when we were looking at channel partner expectation, there's already a higher expectation of personalized engagement, as we see demographics shifting to Gen Z, millennials, and just in general, people are just more used to working with their mobile phones, having their FaceTime calls. And this increases expectations of like seamless digital first collaborative experiences, but that augment the day-to-day meetings that they may have had. So we saw last year with COVID, there was a massive shift to digital. And we all know that this is likely to stay here, but it's more likely to become a hybrid type business model, right? And we see that business models really need to figure out how to continue building a strong relationship with partner on a hybrid customer journeys that span digital and physical interactions now. And then while volume discounts, kind of signing that contract, letting go for 2 years, having the business trip once in a while was the norm, we saw that there's also been a shift in the values of those channel partners, where they need to be able to collaborate with brands that they trust, that have common values and goals with them beyond the typical economic value that we see. And one of the key factors there is about transparency too. So beyond that, even if we look at it from a systems perspective and how those incentives are typically managed, we see that you bringing incentives, those programs, that there's a lot of care, effort to bring in these programs to motivate and energize your ecosystem. But there's several challenges that we see from like a management perspective itself. When teams are coming in to collaborate, the finance team is funding these programs. Then we have the sales team that's trying to basically move the needle on the relationships, on the sales and growth. Things break down across the year or so that the program will run, where finance has a lot of manual tasks into compiling the accruals, calculating the payouts, and they just don't have time to collaborate and be transparent with the ROIs or in-flight benefits that are happening with the sales team. And the sales team is not having the view on if things are working or not, are not able to in-flight make adjustments to basically incentivize the right behaviors that could move the right needle at either the corporate level or even down to the individual level. And at the end of the chain, we also have the partners who have no idea where they are in terms of attainment. If they do a few more things, a couple more sales, will they unlock some kind of massive benefit? A lot of times those programs come into place, they just run without actual channel partners seeing where they are, or even the end customers, right? So this results in like a really inconsistent sales performance. And when we account that this program costs between anywhere from 10 to 50% of a deal, this is a significant cost and a hit on the ROI, which impacts any kind of efforts down the line from a finance perspective that they wouldn't participate in that anymore. So how can we start reimagining those channel programs? To me, there's really three foundational aspects here that we can look at. There's one, the optimization and automation. There's a lot of moving parts within these incentive programs. So the systems has to be able to leverage, lift a bit of the effort here, being able to recommend what's working, right? As you're planning the program, what would be the right offer based on what worked last year, based on who's a member of this specific program. And then any kind of data that's happening in real time should also be visible across every party, finance, sales, marketing, as well as your channel partners. And then collaboration should happen through partner portals when you're unlocking maybe some co-op funds, being able to just send in a social media message to that partner saying, hey, let's start doing something. So the engagement is really that second pillar, which should be about being able to engage at the right time across the life cycle, but with 176 on average, with potentially different, being at different parts of their life cycle, the system also has to help those sales and the teams participating in building the incentivization program about alerting them to basically come into play, either call the partner, give them a bit of love. Sometimes they'll need a white glove treatment right before the conversion. So this is another key part of what the system should be able to provide, which brings us to also the third pillar being about the connected and collaborative platform. So a lot of files, a lot of interactions happen. How do you keep a view of that and then basically interact in context of those interactions and see the impact right away on how that's impacting your business? And here at Salesforce, this is basically what we've done. We've come with a spectrum of initiatives on one platform with a common data model that basically manage all of that from the rational rewards, right? More like the rebate style rewards, and then down to the experiential rewards, which we would often see more as loyalty programs that you can see on the right side of this slide. So it's not really a question of which solution is best, but really what lever should be pulled when, right? So coming in with a spiff, if you want to move some volume, creating a trip that could be one if we want to basically introduce a new product, and the distributor sales rep needs to be able to have a conversation with the retailers potentially. If you have a trip that they might win at the end of the 3 weeks, that will always be the first conversation they'll have with their customers. More from a tactical perspective, those two new solutions on the Salesforce platform. With loyalty management now, you have the opportunity to manage your rewards, have benefits unlocked. It could be partner benefits if you're partnering with a gym or a restaurant. So you can also have indirect referrals as part of your programs with your preferred partners to help reward your long tail customers or your distributors, brokers. You can manage vouchers, 3 months free at the gym, and all of that is trackable with Tableau CRM. And then on the right side with the rebate program management, you can keep doing the traditional incentives that you have by having real-time accruals and payout calculations happen, down to having the finance teams have full visibility on the rebate process, the settlements, and being able to capture liabilities and potentially even fraud that may be happening, all through one single pane of glass, looking at those two spectrums of rewards. And then, of course, since it's all visible to both the internal teams on the sales and finance side, it can be easily shared with your channel partners to also show them where they are in terms of their attainment. So in terms of unlock, what this means is really 4 pillars that are gonna move in terms of benefit, right? There's an economic benefit here for growth, better revenue and profitability. There's a brand benefit for getting more share of mind from the suppliers. They are also working with many suppliers. So if they have programs, if they see your brand there, there's co-marketing opportunities. You're sharing expertise with them, right? Winning some points for taking a class. Human nature, we'll talk about what we know. So of course, sharing, more information about your products, rewarding that behavior of, coming online, taking a class on potentially a new drink that you've come out with, it will get talked about, right? And that share of mind will just go beyond the suppliers, the channel partners, but also to their own customers that they're dealing with. And then, there's also the stakeholder relationship part. Those programs incorporate typically often, things like being part of the president club as a company because all the reps have exceeded their expectation, but also helping the individuals get connected to the right people because now you have a full 360-degree view of the individual profile of each one of those channel partners, distributor sales reps that you're building through those interactions that are coming back in your loyalty management system, right? And then you can connect them to the right people, but also understand what moves them. So providing the right swag could be a different type of benefits like a gift card or something like a trip to achieve the goals that you want. But then they'll always remember you as, the supplier of choice, the brand that they have the best relationship with. And lastly, around the community aspect. So corporate citizenship now is a big part we find of this type of programs. Before we always saw a race down to the margin, right? Providing bigger discounts, bigger funding, but now being part of that community, donating points to organizations that matter to your channel partners and customers, like the local communities and school, also moves the needle in terms of collaboration, engagement, and so on. So, let's actually hear from Donna Mall, right? So we had a chance to catch up with her. She gave us some great insights. They've already created a B2C type incentive program, and they also are looking in the future to create a B2B one. And she had a lot of good tips for us. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Hi, so joining us from Rack Room Shoes is Donna Mall. Welcome. So today, while our topic is really on the B2B channel incentives, right? And before we go deeper on that, we know that Rack Room Shoes has seen a lot of success with its consumer program. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So when I started in 2019, we needed to do a better job of understanding what the value of being able to communicate to our consumers, our members, with email marketing, what the value of that was. As at the time, we didn't require an email address to enroll in the program. And so in order to change that requirement, basically we had to make an argument, we had to make a case for what the value of that would be, the data point. And so we built a customer lifetime value model actually within Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And we do that by pumping a lot of our loyalty data into Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And so then we built a customer lifetime value model that helped us understand the impact of email marketing on customer lifetime value. And what we've been able to prove is that the customer lifetime value on a person with an email address, a valid email address, who's getting our marketing, is 37% higher, or about $28.8 million higher than it is on customers without.
Oh, wow. And now that you have a lot of understanding of your consumer and you're really getting that 360, what's the next step like for the consumer loyalty program for you?
Well, our next step is really to better understand what our customers want from us, is to understand how do we deliver the kind of customer experiences that our members are looking for. And one of the main ways that we intend to do that is through a competitive loyalty survey. So we're going to go out and survey our competitors, loyalty members, and our own, and to understand where we can do better and where our customers may be shopping our competition, and how we can bring them back and gain that market share back and win their loyalty.
Got it. And through all these activities and your experience, is that helping you for basically defining a B2B program? Do you see similarities? What are the differences, when it comes to that?
Well, I think what we definitely see in our program are brand affinities. So from that perspective, it does open up opportunities and ideas about ways to extend the program, maybe even into a B2B perspective. The one thing that I find the difference between most B2B and B2C programs is the scale, the size. B2Bs tend to be a little smaller. The award or the reward offerings tend to be more diverse. Sometimes you have choices. The nature of the relationship tends to be longer because, you know, the spend is quite a bit bigger from a B2B perspective. But just understanding really, I think, what consumers are after. And I think the brand affinity is probably the one area where we have the most opportunity.
Got it. I see. Now, you know, if we look a bit forward for the future, right? What are some key things that you're considering for like your B2B incentive program?
Wow. I can't really go into too much on that. I'm gonna leave you with a word called partnerships. That's
You got it. But can you at least share maybe some important lessons that your channel partners have shared
well,
with
again,
you?
I think really more, I think the biggest learning for us has been not so much that people are interested in the value of what we offer, which is definitely there because we have a BOGO everyday model. And so there is definite value when you come and shop at Rec Room versus some other retailers. But one of the biggest learnings has been that is not necessarily the biggest driver of our business. It's brand affinity. And so as long as we're carrying the trendy brands, the brands that, you know, people are looking for, then we do better. And so I think if there's one takeaway, it's really that.
Got it. All right, before we close, you've shared a lot of information. I think that's very helpful for everyone. But any last tips, tricks that you want to share with anybody who's thinking of embarking into this journey?
Be passionate. I think that unless you are passionate about the customer experience, which I am, and I've been a customer advocate most of my professional life. My very first job was in a call center. And so I think that helped me, that experience really helped me understand customer behavior and how to deal with customers and how to make customers happy. And it has really carried me through almost over 25 years of doing what I do and has landed me in this place where I am passionate about customer relationship management. I'm passionate about optimizing the customer experience and seeing the impact that has is what really makes me happy. But it's hard and it is not always fruitful, and you will have successes and failures, but you can't look at failures as failures. You have to look at them as opportunities. And so I think for me, it's just be passionate about what you do and persevere. Don't give up.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. It's great talking to you.
So that was from Donna from Rec Room Shoes. And that was a lot of great insights that we wanted to share with you here. So, you know, basically we're towards the end of the call, but what we really wanted to do is kind of show you how we can bring the financial incentives and the behavioral incentives that typically are shared with channel partners, long tail customers, drive the right behavior at the right time with them, but also get an understanding of what those indirect sales are, what's happening, how, you know, your channel partners' customers are behaving with them, getting that back, that visibility into like that multi-step route to market. And hopefully this was helpful for everybody. Thank you. And I'm going to open it up for questions if there's anything, but otherwise, please also come join us on June 9th for the Industry Summit.
Great, thanks, Nathan. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this next session here. We are going to talk about scaling distribution with always-on commerce and service. My name is Molly Meekum, and I am part of our retail and consumer goods industry team here at Salesforce, and I will be running this session for you today. Before I do begin, I do want to do a quick reminder that customers should base their purchasing decisions on the products and services that are currently available. You may have seen this once or twice, but just wanted to make sure you saw it one more time before we dig in. So as a result of this unprecedented year, we have seen a lot of changes. And one of the biggest has been in the consumer goods market, and how customers of ours and brands are just changing not how they work. You know, we're all working at home, we're all on Zoom, but the way they go to market, how they interact with their customers. Prior to the pandemic, the consumer goods industry was known for over-indexing on those in-person interactions, always on the road, traveling, you know, meetings, really using that kind of human interaction to drive the business through those relationships. And, you know, during this last year, if you see in the middle here, 97% of companies have changed not just how they work, but how they go to market, how they find and buy and sell and support their customers, their partners, their distributors. You know, overnight, many people had to digitize, many still are. But what we've seen here is it's not just digitization for the sake, but this idea of setting up, you know, procurement, service, self-help. We closed a lot of ground last year in that shift. It may not have been by choice, but this idea of being able to take how we ran a business and really, you know, starting to infuse technology to help not just survive, but also thrive has been really impressive. And we're going to double click down into that. So we just wanted to highlight here some stats actually from a McKinsey study that came out a little while ago. So we all felt that knee-jerk reaction of overnight, you know, instead of being on the road, I'm coming to you from my home here. So a lot of CG companies were in that same boat. And not only is it a channel shift, a route to market shift, but really these behavioral changes that we've seen. And we really wanted to just highlight, okay, so we're not in person, but look at all of these other channels that have grown and grown consistently throughout 2020 as we've come into 2021 as well. So this idea of, yes, email coming back, the idea of always on chat, self-service with the sales reps, just kind of a new way of working. You're not losing that one-to-one connection, but it's a different channel. And then for sure on the digital self-serve, you know, that e-commerce component really driving the business forward as well. And change just didn't come as we start to reopen, schools reopen, travel is, you know, opening up again. Some of us are back in the office. This change isn't going anywhere. Really what we're starting to see is that this change isn't so bad. Maybe we were, again, forced into it and overnight, you know, had to react. But now as we start to dig into how the businesses are doing, maybe have some time to implement some of the strategies and really turn on some of these channels, we've noticed the shift to digital hasn't necessarily resulted in less revenue. It's actually allowed a lot of consumer goods companies to scale in a way that just wasn't possible before. There were only so many hours in the day and plane or, you know, road trips and stores you could hit, businesses you could hit. This idea of making up for some of the lost revenue from in-person with this, you know, activation of digital channels is really interesting as we really start to look at, you know, brands and companies that had channels in place or were able to turn them on quickly are really starting to see relationships grow, business continue to be positioned for success in the future. And in some cases, especially in the essential goods, you know, food, beverage, fast moving consumer goods, be able to keep up with this demand. So as we've seen not only the channels turn on and people try to look at how they work a bit differently, we started to see the revenue shift, which again, as we have some more time to really think through these processes and how we deliver those customer interactions, it's really interesting to see, you know, we had to do something, oh, maybe it's not so bad. Now, how can we take some of this change, some of these digital channels that were turned on or started to come together, and where do we go from here? How do we keep up with that relationship, that growth of business? Here at Salesforce, we've really had the pleasure of working with some of the leaders in the consumer goods industry to help deliver these different digital experiences for their partners, for their customers, for their customers' customers. We've helped brands say goodbye to manual POs and hello to maximizing revenues by digitizing the long tail demand. We've been able to help our customers tailor their offers so that you can have a personalized pricing list or visibility into different inventory buckets. And with our service platform, we've been able to help our customers really provide B2B customer service that is personalized, connected, fast, and an overall great experience. One of these customers we've supported during this time is Amex, who is a leading disposable glove manufacturer, and they have gone through an incredible digital transformation over this last year. And last week, I actually had the pleasure of talking with their leader of transformation, who is their Chief Technology Officer. And we were able to interview Chad and record that session. So we are going to share that video with you now. Good morning. Hi, Chad. Thanks for joining us today. First of all, could you give us a little bit of an introduction of who you are and a little bit about Amex and what you do there?
Sure. So I'm Chad Goshen. I've been at Amex now for about 2.5 years. I'm the CTO here. Been in the industry for about 20 plus years, straight from the military onto Dell for 14 plus years, and then worked at Expedia, Wayfair, healthcare, different industries. This is my first private company, Amex, that I'm working for. Amex is a PPE distributor, so we primarily focus on disposable gloves and all kinds of disposable gloves to service our communities here.
Great, thank you. Amex has been one of the leaders in digital transformation across the CPG industry. And I'd love to hear, what are some of the innovations that you really pioneered during your time at Amex?
Yeah, I think with Amex, Amex is a great company. It's been around for almost 30 years, and they've organically grown over time, and I've seen a lot of good growth year after year. But we kind of hit a precipice almost 2-3 years ago where, to grow, we kept having to add people. I mean, that was the way to grow, whether it was with our customer service team or our sales team. And we wanted to find a way that we can grow without having that overhead, and also just grow a little more effectively, right, and scale better. So, I was brought in to really drive that digital transformation in Amex and help enable that growth through technology. And some of the things that we've deployed, we deployed a CRM system where they didn't really have one before. We've automated a lot of the functionality that our ERP systems used to do. We deployed a B2B portal where a lot of our customers can self-service. And then we've had to get a little bit more creative with the pandemic, where before you're trying to get as many customers as you want. Well, the pandemic kind of created this allocation type issue that we've never had or dreamed of having before, where we had to go in and make sure that we're only sending product to the right people, the right customers, the right businesses, and so on, as for a long period of time. So we had to get pretty innovative and build on those solutions, the capability to do that type of customization where we couldn't in the past, because we were using kind of basic tools. So really the CRM, the B2B capability, the ERP capability, we shut down our data centers and moved everything into the cloud to be able to scale. There's a lot of kind of transformation that isn't just kind of CRM and B2B related, but full end-to-end, from an infrastructure, from a security. We've migrated all our PCI responsibility onto a third party. So there's a lot of things that we did so that the business can scale. That was the core kind of value of driving digital transformation in our area, is the scalability of our business and helping it grow.
Wow, that's a lot. You actually kind of hit on kind of my next question here of when you talk about all of your digital investments, really playing and empowering your teams during this challenging time. So from maybe more of an IT perspective, how do you think, you were really able to bring those tools together to help your sales team, and you hit on commerce, but across the business, how were you able to bring all of those tools and teams together to really help, the business during a time when demand was so unprecedented?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is, just being extremely transparent with the business on the challenges that you have from an IT perspective, and then being extremely supportive and part of the solution of the challenges that the business has in dealing with that. IT in the past, and I've been around for a while working in IT, has been viewed as kind of that expense on the side that you have to deal with from a business perspective. And really my goal was, and where I sit today is I'm part of the solution, right? IT is part of the solutions of meeting demand or margin challenges or any type of challenges. We're sitting at the table, and to get a seat at the table, you have to be transparent. You have to communicate very well. You can't be kind of a black box, right? That traditional IT shop, and you have to be a true business partner with your peers, with your CFOs, your CMOs, CROs, and so on. So I think that is the shift that a good kind of IT department has, is they're a service provider that are sitting there trying to make sure that they're viewed as part of that solution to any business problem that they have, and not just another kind of expense that you have to deal with. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, no, that was great. I mean, talking about, that technology and the importance of bringing it together. But I love how you talked about that alignment with your peers and really partnering with the business to, bring those solutions to life. And like you said, get that seat at the table to really ensure that alignment. Awesome. So as you kind of talk about leaning into that strategy and continuing to build your capabilities and that alignment, where and how have you seen that really kind of help grow the business, or maybe better understand the business in times of high demand? Any kind of key takeaways that have really come up during this last year from you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is don't underestimate the customer, right? If the customer, the world is changing, more people are going online, more people are ordering things differently, and self-service has become kind of a huge part of our business, and it's kind of the acceptable method of doing business. Where we're in a traditional kind of environment where at the beginning of kind of this journey, when I first came on, I got a lot of naysayers that were saying, well, no, I have to call Joe. That's the only way he'll place an order, right? And so on. Like, you have to have that relationship, that direct relationship with the customer through voice or through email, right? And what we've done is really transform that, where you don't lose that connection with your customer. You don't lose that connection with Joe. You're just giving them another tool where they can self-service and they can execute to their needs more quickly. And you're watching what they're doing, right? If they need help, you're able to jump in through your CRM integration or through just regular communication with them. You're able to jump in and assist. So I think that's been kind of the biggest shift in kind of the mindset of the sales team, that I can use technology to help me scale, and it enables my customers to better self-serve. And it's not kind of a detractor from them placing an order. It's actually going to help me build my portfolio. And it came kind of just in time with our pandemic, when we, with the pandemic that we had, we're a PPE manufacturer, distributor, and we just had tremendous amount of orders come through, and there was no way our sales team could have handled it, right? Even as you're allocating inventory to certain teams, or our customer service team could have handled it. So So we 10x the number of orders without having to increase any of our sales or our customers. And that was really, or just minimal increases. And it was really driven through our technology adoption and our technology use.
That's awesome to see that, that need for scale really combined with that idea of self-service kind of powering the business. As we kind of look to maybe, what's next and the forward thinking of where you go from here, what are some of the areas you'd like to, continue to iterate and innovate and help move, the business forward as we navigate the pandemic, but also kind of the next, year, 18 months, 2 years with Amex?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of opportunity to now that we have a lot of these traditional customers that were used to ordering via phone, ordering on the web, their needs, not every customer is different and is the same, and there's a need to better personalize the experience for every single type of customer that you have. So one of the things that I'll be working on over the next year with my team is, well, 2 things that from that perspective. One is continue to collect feedback on the site. We do that on a regular basis to make sure that we're, at a full kind of industry level, that we're providing each customer with the best possible kind of experience that they have, where the placement of the products on the page, their checkout process, what they normally do. But then the second part of this is even taking it a step further and then personalizing the site to that specific customer's needs. So that's the evolution that I see on our B2B site, is continuing to get feedback and then also driving personalization for each customer to better service them, right? There's a lot of other things on from an analytics perspective. We want to be able to have a customer get on and not just see their order status, but then also see kind of a little bit more detail on the products, which products that, because we're selling to distributors that are then selling to end users. So giving them better analytics on what's working for them, what's not working for them, promotions that they can take advantage of. So, there's a lot more that we can do to make sure that our customers are taken care of and that they are, in the best possible position to sell our products. That's the end of the day. That's what we want them to do, is be advocates for our products, because that would drive sales, and through that continuous feedback, I think we're going to get there.
I love that, how you've really worked to set that platform and that scale for growth and really starting to get to that next level of personalization and really, like you said, infusing that data in every experience. That's awesome. We can't wait to see what you do and have you back next year. So thank you, Chad, for your time. Really appreciate it today.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right. Apparently I like cream sweaters. I promise I did shower and move since last week in that interview, but I think that wraps our session today. So thank you all. If there's any questions, we can definitely take a look at those. Otherwise, hope you all have a great rest of your day.
So thank you everyone for joining us today. We're gonna answer your questions as you post them in the chat. So please don't hesitate. I mean, Gabe is here for you as well as the rest of the team. And we're more than happy to have your contribution. So please, as we're presenting, go through and add your questions. So today we're going to be talking about a favorite topic of mine, which is sustainability, something very close to my heart for personal reasons. My son is actually studying that. Gabe and I were talking about this earlier. And Gabe has been in this environment and he'll tell you more about it, for about 20 years now. So it's been quite an interesting journey at Herman Miller. And but before we get to that, let me just share with you a couple of stats of what we're seeing across the globe And what we're seeing as we talk to so many different companies and how sustainability has really become top of mind. I think we can all remember those images at the very beginning of this pandemic where suddenly there were dolphins in the water and we saw more birds in the air and we saw animals, crossing streets and whatnot in different cities around the world. And that kind of brought the whole notion of, the planet and our lives moving forward and what importance that is for our lives today. And when you look at what that means for consumers, there are increasingly more people who are interested in purchasing products when the materials or the company values or whatnot are closer to their hearts and are closer towards a sustainable future. And more and more people are looking for that transparency. They're looking for more information. They want to know what they're buying. They want to understand where those products are made. They want to understand the value chain. And I think that when you look at the legislation that's been changing and evolving across the globe, I think there's now like 120 something, 27 different countries around the world that have banned single-use plastic. That speaks to this trend and how it's really become at the heart of what people across the globe are really interested in seeing. And the fact that looking at the stat here, coming from McKinsey and from Bain, Accenture, and a number of different sources that we look at Salesforce, is 81% plan to buy more sustainable products throughout the next 5 years, and it's probably even higher number than that. Again, depending on what that product it is we're talking about. Is it food? Is it clothing? Is it things for the house or whatnot? So at Salesforce, when we look at, what does that mean in terms of, the value chain, right? There's the companies we're talking to, we see different ways to go about, unlocking sustainability. Part of it is, and part of the journey is looking at your carbon neutrality. So trying to understand, where and how your footprint, your carbon footprint is evolving across your organization, not just in what you do and the way that you produce and you manufacture products, but even within your value chain in terms of all the different partner ecosystems. What does that mean and how do you measure that? And products like Sustainability Cloud that we've launched very recently and are constantly updating with new capabilities is really speaking to that. And we see more and more of a need to have that visibility in order to make the right decisions and that transparency in order to know where you are, where you're sitting, and how do you move forward? How do you improve that carbon neutrality or your carbon footprint overall? The other thing is we mentioned is consumer transparency. People really want to know what they're buying. They really want to know where the product's coming from, and they want to make sure that the products that they're purchasing or the services that they're using are in line with their core values. And of course, using those insights that you're unlocking from many different avenues to help you drive product and service innovations within that value chain. So how do you source the right materials, have the right partners and whatnot? And Gabe will talk about what that really is for Herman Miller with a new product they recently launched using recycled plastic from the ocean. So I'm going to very quickly share with you another customer that we have at Salesforce called Friesland Campina. So it is a dairy company. They are a cooperative of farmers, dairy farmers, and there's a lot of milk type products or dairy type products that they produce. And if you look at the solution that they produce, actually they produced it for the Asian market, because it was quite a bit of a question mark about traceability. What am I buying? What am I feeding my family? And especially with this concern, that happens in some countries of tainted products, especially when you look at, I think there was a couple of years ago in China, there was the question of baby formula and baby milk. And so, a lot of parents wanted to know, what am I giving my child? And so with this solution of being able to use a QR code and to track very quickly and to know the whole entire process, where your product was, where did it start off, and where did it go before it ended up in your home, I think is very reassuring for a lot of people out there and becoming more and more the norm. So that's just, to give you a little bit of an appetite for what we're going to talk about next. So let me introduce Gabe, who is the Director of Sustainability at Herman Miller. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see you, because right now I don't see you whatsoever. Okay, where am I here? Stop sharing. All right, here we are. So there you are, Gabe. Thank you so much for joining us. And I know, we chatted earlier today, and I think everyone wants to know, tell us about yourself. How did you get into this type of role, and how did you start your journey with Herman Miller?
Sure. Hey, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Pamela, as you mentioned, when we were talking this morning, you asked me that same question, and my answer was it was just luck. And the saying is sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And I had the good fortune to have a headhunter reach out to me just over 20 years ago and explain to me that Herman Miller was looking for a chemical engineer to head up what was going to be a newly formed design for the environment team. And Herman Miller had been working with Bill McDonough for probably about 10 years. And Bill is one of those early big thinkers in the area of sustainability. And he was helping us reimagine how we could approach sustainable product design. And so I'd say I just happened to be lucky enough to be the right person in the right spot. I was working for one of Herman Miller's suppliers and had the opportunity to get on the ground floor and start the process of incorporating the concepts of cradle-to-cradle design into our product development process. And over my career there, I picked up additional responsibilities along the way as we started to look at not just our products, but looking at the processes we use to manufacture them, as well as the places and how we operate them. So it was really nothing more than like I said, being lucky enough to be in the right spot at the right time and have the right skills to do some of the work that Herman Miller envisioned.
Yeah, I think you said something like something you thought would have been 2 years ended up being 20. So obviously that journey has been great so far.
Yeah, it's like most people my age, I think every job I had prior to Herman Miller was 2 to 3 years. And I thought I'd give this furniture business a shot. And it's amazing how fast it went by. But I think the gravity of being part of an organization that's purpose driven is really heavy. And if you look at the average tenure of the people across Herman Miller, I would guess that it's got to be 15 years plus. I've got people on my team with 40 years of experience inside the corporation. I think it goes back to this idea that we've got a bigger mission than simply maximize the amount of money we make.
Wow, 40 years, wow. So tell us a little bit about the journey that Herman Miller's been on and, the journey of sustainability. So I mean, I understand, the product focus, but, and that obviously is key. You're a manufacturer with amazing, iconic products and brands. And, how did that journey, how's it evolved? How have you seen it evolve over time?
I would say it's like most things, it's been organic. And as you learn more, you sort of expand your scope and reset your targets. I think when we got started, in the early 90s, the late 80s, actually it was deforestation. That was one of the key issues that launched Herman Miller's sustainability efforts. And if you look at one of our iconic products, the Eames lounge chair, we were using rosewood, a tropical species harvested from Brazil. And we had a group inside our supply chain that became aware of the issues associated with that, with deforestation. And that small group challenged the leadership of our company about using this unsustainable material. And I think that effort galvanized our commitment to start thinking about product design. And so that launched into going after zero landfill. And then we started working with green buildings, and we're a founding member of the U.S. Green Building Council, the LEED standards. And we started to look at our places. And that relationship with Bill McDonough turned into cradle-to-cradle design with a focus on material chemistry and closed loop. And I think if you look where we're at today, with the notion of the circular economy, I think the Ellen MacArthur Foundation has done a fantastic job of refreshing and updating some of Bill's early work. And we packaged climate change alongside that. And I think that's where we're at today is looking at not just what we can do inside the four walls of our corporation, but I'm personally excited about what we're starting to see in terms of collaboration and working with other brands to start to take our unique talents to collectively solve the global problems we're facing.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this earlier, and I'm a complete 150% believer in partnerships. I think that it's just the problem is too big to do it alone, and not just this one, but in general, when you want to tackle something and you want to tackle it on a global level, it's partnerships make the most sense. And sometimes it's with your competitors who end up becoming your partners because the challenge makes sense. I mean, I personally come from the cosmetic industry and in my past life, and looking at no animal testing, the first person who would come up with some sort of solution, obviously you want to share that with the market, right? You don't want to keep it for yourself and say it's only for you because you're doing a global good. So I applaud that effort. And so tell me a little bit more about this new, plastic sourced from the ocean product that was recently launched.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something you can share with us, or it's pretty exciting actually when you think about your bottles, me sitting in France, your Evian bottles, which I try not to buy anymore, but anyways, and how they end up becoming a chair.
Sure. I think of all the things that I've had the opportunity to work on at Herman Miller, this one's exciting to me for a variety of reasons, and I think it's connecting the environmental issue, the global environmental issue of the amount of waste plastic reaching the ocean. And depending on which source you go to, the stat that sticks with most people is that if we don't change the way that we manage our waste plastic, there's going to be more plastic than fish in the ocean by 2030, by 2040. And so that stat certainly sticks with me. And when we think about responsibility and whether it's cradle to cradle or circular economy, right, we're dispersing these plastics out in the environment. And as a brand, we've got some responsibility to make sure that those plastics are coming back and being recycled without that leakage. And so we were working with one of our corporate customers, Dell Corporation, and as we were engaging with their leadership team, they were really leaning into that particular problem. And they asked Herman Miller if we'd be willing to join a consortium of companies and help them stand up economies in the developed part of the world to collect those waste plastics and create markets for those materials inside office furniture. And when we learned about what we're trying to do, absolutely, we're like 100% in, and we joined this consortium of companies. The group is called NextWave, and when you look at the membership around the table, just a few of the companies. So you've got Dell at the center of it, but they pulled in Interface, the flooring company who has a stellar reputation. You've got Trek Bicycles, who's been doing some amazing things. HP, so one of their competitors, they invited around the table, and then we've got another one of our competitors, Human Scale, all collectively working to develop this supply chain and create markets for those materials. And by working together, we can shortcut the process and increase demand. And so we just launched our first textile offering several weeks ago, where we've been collecting that ocean-bound plastic and started incorporating that into our existing and new textile lines. And you wouldn't know it by looking at it, but I think what we're trying to do is create and rebrand this notion of recycled content as premium, if you think about that, where in the past you might be thinking your definition of premium might have been something new. And if we could make people covet having this ocean-bound plastic, wouldn't that be an amazing thing, as we can drive more and more volume to keep that garbage from reaching the ocean?
Absolutely. I think I saw something recently about even Hugo Boss created a collection recently of clothing, sportswear, which was from recycled ocean plastic, and of course Adidas, who's been communicating on it. And I think it's wonderful. Maybe we should introduce you to Adidas, who's another Salesforce customer, and look at adding them into this ecosystem as well. So where does technology play a role in this? Where and how does technology play a role in the process you're on and your thinking moving forward as a company?
Yeah, I think technology is something we absolutely need. So again, we were talking earlier, and if you look at the history of Herman Miller, we grew our business largely organically, right, over a 100-year period or so. And then over the past 10 years, we've grown dramatically through acquisition. And we were becoming this collection of brands on disparate systems. And I'm sure, like many of you on the call today, knowing that gathering information across these brands who are on different technology platforms tended to push us to the universal tool for running business, which is Excel. And I think what we found is exceedingly hard to run a $3 billion company on Excel spreadsheets, and so especially from a sustainability perspective. So having tools that allow us to commonize the data collection that we're looking at, so that we can dashboard, if not in real time, at least as close to real time as we can get, so we can make decisions and course correct where we see increases in landfill, or if we're spiking in energy for some unknown reason against our plan. I think all of that capability is something that you have to have if you're going to set ambitious goals and achieve them. And so I think those are the types of products that my team is looking for, so we can work smarter instead of harder.
Yes, and I don't know if you want to talk about it here, but I know you're in the process of looking at Sustainability Cloud and implementing that solution and helping you drive that connection between, as you said, going away from the Excel sheets and moving towards something which can be used across all the different products and services and brands that you have globally.
Yeah, Pamela, if you talk to the people on my team who manage our carbon footprint, I can tell you that they're super excited about having a platform that's going to allow us to aggregate our utility data from across the globe. So we're, I'd say, weeks away from having our data loaded up in Sustainability Cloud. And then I'm going to say essentially the push of a button, we'll be able to turn all of that utility data using the correct emission factors into our carbon footprint. And what used to take, I'd say, on the order of hundreds of hours to gather that information, is going to be dramatically shortcut. And I think it's a great example of us working smarter and not harder. So we don't have to muscle that data around the world and load it into a spreadsheet and manually move it, which is ripe for errors. We now are setting up electronic connections and have that go into one source storage for that, which will automatically flip into our carbon footprint, to your point earlier, which is what our customers are looking at. Whether it's the folks at Salesforce or other tech companies, we've got a handful of our corporate customers who are looking for us to support their carbon reduction efforts. And now we can provide that information, quicker, faster, more accurately, which is certainly what I think everybody's looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with all this legislation, there's, again, sitting in EMEA, a lot of legislation coming out around, food waste and whatnot. And obviously that's going to accelerate as we move forward. And as companies get used to relooking at their businesses and relooking at their value chains. And I think, as well as what we've seen with some of the out of stock situations within the pandemic, is having a lot of companies reevaluate where their suppliers are sitting. And with that goes, if you're going to reevaluate supplier, you're going to potentially look at maybe a wider scope of KPIs when you're evaluating who those suppliers should be closer to home. And I guess, solutions that allow you to have that transparency and that visibility, when you're looking throughout that whole value chain, are going to be even more and more important. So what advice would you give? What advice would you give a company who is starting on this path, starting on this journey? Like, where would you tell them to begin? Or what would be a do's and don'ts if you had a short list of do's and don'ts? It's a big question.
It is. And I think where I would start is figuring out, I just had this conversation with a small printer based in the Chicago area who's like, hey, small business, they're just trying to get started. And I think figuring out what your values are is really key. Like, what's important to your business, right? If Herman Miller was a person, I'd like to think, hey, what do we care about? And what are we passionate about? And then line that up with, hey, what do our customers care about? And look for that intersection between your business and your values from a sustainability perspective. And I think that intersection is where you want to work. Because those are, I think you'll uncover the high leverage items. And that would be my approach. And then start small. Don't try to do everything at once. So with the 3 bubbles you shared, boy, that's a ton of work in each one of those areas, whether it's transparency or working on climate change, those types of areas. And so if you're just getting started, find that 1 or 2 high leverage items and really dial in and build some success and build momentum. And I think reframing sustainability from being a compliance function to a market enabler is what I would say. It's not what do I have to pay for that, but what do I get out of it? What can I contribute would be sort of my guidance. It's really important to reframe this notion that sustainability is just it's just a cost to the business. I think if you look at it properly, it's going to build your brand. It's going to allow you to make sure that you're able to sell your product or service to your customers. And when we talk about talent attraction, retention, right, the most important asset inside your business is your people. And if you have a strong brand in that area, it's one of those things that I talked about, that gravity. at Herman Miller. I think it's one of the things that keeps people connected to our company for so long.
Yeah, and you're right. When you're looking at talent, and I think we talked about this earlier, like our children and I don't want to say the younger generation, but a talent pool which is entering into the market today. These notions of values, sustainability, working for a business that has something bigger than just margins as part of their bottom line, I guess you could call it, is even more important. So when you talk about this transformation you're going on, how difficult has it been just to bring everyone on board to some of the proposals that you've come up with or whatnot? Have you found it challenging, or in terms of even just not just within the company but overall this ecosystem? And I imagine you're using various data points and whatnot to help bring people on board. How do you go through that? Is that something you're comfortable talking about?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge. If you look at where we started when I entered my career at Herman Miller, we spent a lot of time figuring out sort of what to work on. And I think now it's more your questions like, how do you get it done, right? I think there's general consensus on what we need to work on, but aligning your organization, whether it's the 8,000 people you have inside Herman Miller, or the order of magnitude bigger than that you have inside Salesforce, if you get alignment around your entire employee base, you have all of those advocates and ambassadors for your brand in this area. And I think that's how you drive change. And I think we've sort of gone in peaks and valleys when we've been really good at that. And when we had really tight messaging where everybody inside Herman Miller knew that we were going after zero landfill. Right? There was purity in that vision. If you look at where we were at in the early 2000s, like it didn't matter who you talked to inside Herman Miller, was on the manufacturing floor, or you're talking to our executive team. Like everybody knew, like, hey, we're going after zero landfill. I think our message got a little bit more complicated the last time we said it in 2012, 2013. And we're right now looking at resetting that. And I think it's really important to have a clean, simple message in a way that people inside and outside the organization kind of know what you stand for, and they understand what they can do to support that mission.
Yeah, I think it is a journey for a lot of companies, and we hear more about companies who are looking to become B Corp, and driving that very often through the supply chain. Of course, is there one KPI that for you is you wake up in the morning, you open up your different dashboards and whatnot, that is the first thing you look at? Is there something specific that for you kind of drives your day?
I don't know that I've got a specific metric, but like the things that I'm thinking about right now are climate change, right? How do we line up our organization around addressing climate change and really lean into that? I think the other big thing that I haven't figured out how to metric is what are we doing to become an increasingly circular company? I think having worked with Cradle to Cradle for the past 25 plus years, I feel like we've made some strides, but the part of that circle that's broken is what happens with our no longer needed furniture. So if there's a piece of being circular that I think about a lot, it's how do we make sure that our products that are dispersed in the environment actually don't go to the landfill or released in the ocean or where have you, but how do we make sure that they're coming back to Herman Miller or our suppliers so they come back to life? It's something else I think is another thing I think about. And then I think the last issue for me is when we think about the expansive nature of sustainability, it's like, what are we doing from a social perspective? And are we creating an equitable environment for everybody across the globe, including our suppliers and our workers and our customers? Those would be the big issues that I'm wrestling with that we haven't necessarily sought out, but those are the problems that we're working on.
Wow, it's a huge mountain of goodness, I guess you could say, you could call it. I could continue talking to you for the next hour. I don't see any questions coming in. If you do have any questions, continue to post them in the chat. We'll make sure to share them with Gabe or get back to you as we can. Oh, now I'm seeing something come in. But it's interested to know, is Salesforce providing sustainability reporting? We actually do have a session. We do have, if you go into the arena, we will be able to have someone answer that question for you. So Adrian, so let us get back to you with that, or otherwise we invite you to visit one of our booths where we do have experts who are there and who can actually give you more information. All right. Thank you so much, Gabe. If there are any questions for Gabe, like I said, please don't hesitate to post them, and we will make sure to reach out to Gabe and get back to you with them. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for joining. And this, like I said, we could go on. And thanks again for being here with us, Gabe. Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure. Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This next session here is all about data. Somali Nikam, again, part of the industries team here, and really excited to talk about collecting and activating data. First party data, definitely a hot topic right now. And as with all the other sessions before we begin, just want to do that quick reminder: customers should base their purchasing decisions on products and services that are currently available. Last time you'll see that slide today. So that's a win. But really just kind of digging into this is, this is a conversation I think we have all day, every day. First party data, it's on everyone's mind. So you can see here, over 80% of brand leaders are really focused on building consumer data. There's a lot of talk about, what type of data, how to build those profiles. And it's a new muscle for a lot of companies who have not played in consumer engagement, either with a transaction or just an overall relationship with consumers directly. So that's one piece of the puzzle. The second piece is, as brands continue to build those first party data assets, the question is, okay, how do I use it? A lot of companies are struggling with that activation and that utilization of the data. So you see here, 55% of these leaders maybe have some profile data, have some, first party data, and now they're stuck. They're not quite sure how to turn that data into relevant messaging and also overall insights for the business. So we're going to talk about how do we start to do that here. And as we look at the next slide, that most successful brands here are not starting over. What you see at the top here is broadcast. That traditional, it might be print or TV or billboards or even digital ads, just campaigns. That's not necessarily going away, but what we're really looking at are those brands who are most successful using the consumer data they have to start to personalize their marketing messaging, and then in turn using, hey, what's working, what's not working, to develop those richer pictures of their consumers to really supplement some of the big, broad strokes that maybe those broadcast campaigns are still supporting. And so what we're seeing is that as you start to use what you have, continue to build on what you have, test and learn, we're seeing that, hey, this is what consumers want. We see that stat, 82 must be the number. So there's another 82% of consumers are saying, hey, treat me like a person, not just a number. So that idea of consumers are willing to raise their hand, provide some information, but you have to use it. You have to start saying, hey, I only want email. I don't want SMS. So please email me. It might be creative. It might be copy. It might be channel. But really, as we look at, how you start to deliver that, we're going to talk to a customer of ours who's doing this today. It's a bike manufacturer who has really focused on delivering relevant marketing messages because they do have that consumer data. They're really resonating with their riders. And before we dig into that interview, we do just kind of want to showcase, what does this look like from the Salesforce perspective? And, we're in a time when all consumers expect everything to be easy and connected and personalized and seamless. That's really hard. So where we've really focused is the Salesforce 360, which really can execute multiple campaigns at a massive scale with that idea of data and personalization so that every marketer can start to create this and make this real. We could use, clicks and not code, a lot of this predictive and dynamic content, again, to help with resource constraints and scale. And really what we're talking about is connecting that data you do have that are coming from multiple channels, unifying it in one central place. visualizing those insights to help marketers drive, that optimization and the return on their programs. Easily report across channels, check in on how things are doing so that every stakeholder across the organization can really have that right information to make the best decision for their role, for their need. And then last but not least is really collaboration to understand how to drive that ROI, how to bring the organization and partners together towards that, really clear business objective. So this is a lot, but really what we're kind of in summary saying is once you have that data strategy, really driving those personalized, consistent engagements become easier once all of that data is unified and in one spot. And then all of this is being used and kind of iterated on. It's not, set it and forget it, but really starting to tweak and iterate using those insights to continue to deliver those relevant messages. So as we talk about this, we wanted to bring that example to life and show an interview we recorded, I believe, just yesterday with a brand who is doing all of this very well. So Nathan, you can go ahead and play that video.
So thanks, John, for joining us today. Can you introduce yourself and Canyon for our audience?
Sure thing. Thanks, Hillary. So nice to meet you, everyone. I'm John Keeler, Global Director of Digital Strategy for Canyon Bikes, currently residing here in Bonn, in Germany. I've been here since May 2018, so 3 years in. It's been a wild ride, re-platforming onto Salesforce. We also run kind of a multi-cloud architecture, so we have Service Cloud or Force.com with Marketing Cloud and Commerce Cloud. So yeah, hopefully I can share some insights into how we use data, how we use it to activate campaigns and engagement with our consumers, and the unique aspect of being a direct-to-consumer brand. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Amazing, me too. So John, brands often sell through retailers instead of going direct to consumer, and retailers take on the task of owning the consumer relationship. However, Canyon has built an incredible direct relationship and strong brand loyalty with consumers going direct to consumer. So how have you been able to engage consumers so effectively?
Just the difference in the models and the data that you get behind them is obviously it's quite stark, right? So you can have a huge network of retailers, but that customer walks in the store, has a conversation with your sales agent, leaves, and you, in essence, you kind of learn nothing about that person. Being able to capture data in the store environment. We have 2 showrooms, one in Carlsbad in the US and one, just down the road at our HQ in Koblenz. And it's hard there, to kind of understand who those customers were and where they go to next. But obviously online and having that direct relationship, we can see everything. So where you came from, how many days before you bought you visited the site, how often you visit the site, what you viewed, how long you spent on the page, whether you sign up for the newsletter. And then obviously when you do buy and we generate that account, that's really when kind of the magic starts to happen in terms of building that relationship and really understanding what that customer experience was. One of the things that we started 2.5, 3 years ago was NPS. So Net Promoter Score, and really understanding the dynamics of the entire customer experience. Because we design and engineer our products in-house. So we do all of that ourselves. We then market, we then box it, we then ship it. We do every single step. And I think NPS has been this amazing tool to just understand the entire process that a customer goes through, and then to strategically hone in on how do we improve each and every step, and then ultimately how do we automate around that? How do we automate some of that user journey to help the customer, to guide the customer? So yeah, it's a really dynamic, really interesting way of engaging with customers. And we connect with customers a lot. So we run a lot of surveys on the site. Obviously our service centers across the world, they're deeply connected. They get a lot of almost immediate feedback from customers that filters throughout the business. So we have kind of the raw, I guess, personless data that we can learn and interpret from, but the call centers and service units, they really give us kind of the live feedback and interpretations. And we use all of that just to design a really amazing customer journey and just constantly learn I think that's the big aspect of it. I guess with the retail environment, it's disparate, it's disconnected, it's quite hard to manage for those particular brands, whereas we're each and every day connecting with and engaging with the consumer.
I love the idea of constantly learning, and data definitely comes from so many different sources. And obviously it's a powerful thing. And you guys have done it quite well. So how do you think about data in terms of building a complete view of your consumer?
Yeah, I always like this question because I think people expect in a business like ours that it's perfect and there's this single source and the whole truth is there. And I think it's actually very different. The data is in lots of different places. Not to say that they're siloed, but it's the way that the team brings them together. So the amazing data analysts, the amazing designers that we have, the merchandisers, they pull together different aspects of data to build a picture and a narrative, right? So data's just numbers. It's binary. It's the insight and the narrative behind it that's really powerful. And it's something that I really enjoy. One of our data analysts, we do a weekly update, and he's always like, okay, this is the key fact for the week. So key fact this week was we did a product launch and we achieved the best conversion rate we've ever achieved on the site. I'm not going to say what it is because you could work a lot out from there, but it was an absolute record. And just having that insight, and we look at all sorts of data, from our traffic data, our engagement data, our inventory levels, our search volume, both organic and through paid, and then we'll look at Google Trends data. We look at lots of other data points as well to try and build this picture of what's happening at a macro level in the market, what's happening with consumers on a day-to-day, how are they engaging with the site, are they coming back to the site, are they not, if they're not, why not, and what's the correlation between all of the aspects in the business, from brand and marketing to product to service to sales to channels. It kind of feeds and informs absolutely everything. So it's lots and lots of different sources, and the hard work and the people in the team that are much smarter than me is pulling that together and then really finding the insights.
That's awesome. I love hearing that, making data actionable. So let's talk about personalization for a minute. And it's hugely important in retail and consumer goods. How does your data strategy help you deliver personalization at every touch point?
Multiple ways. So I'll give you two examples. The first example is we set on a principle about 2 years ago that we had to automate our growth. So we looked at the forecast going forwards. We looked at the investment that was needed to get to where we wanted to go. And we realized there was no way that we could get there unless big core aspects of the customer journey and parts of that journey. So for example, the welcome journey were entirely automated, and they did a series of compounding things. So the welcome journey, really simply, in its simplest form, is somebody signs up for a newsletter and we say, welcome to Canyon. And what we kind of developed in terms of an idea and a data strategy that then drove personalization was, well, what if we know that email address, so we know what somebody's engaged with. What if, based on every click and interaction with that now 158-point welcome journey, that changed the content that you get, it changes the narrative of the products, and we take you further and further down the rabbit hole. But that rabbit hole becomes much more interesting and informative because it's all based on your interactions. And we launched that with great success. So if you come onto the site, you sign up, you press road, we'll take you down the road and we'll describe the different worlds to you. So then you'll say, okay, I'm interested in racing. And then we'll take you through all the different race bikes we've got, whether it's road racing or cyclocross racing or triathlon racing. And then we'll take you into the products. And then that carries through into the site. So why, after engaging with that, would the site remain the same? We have all this data about what you've engaged with and what you're interested in. So I think that's one way that we've done it. That's kind of click engagement. Another way that we're working on at the moment is what we've called like implied cohorts. So this is where I think 2 or 3, 4 years ago, this idea of segmentation was always like, okay, customers will self-segment, and actually anybody who's worked with data, you realize they don't. The idea of unselecting boxes to put myself in a box is nobody does it. We're moving much more towards like the idea. I think the best way I can explain it is like the Instagram algorithm. So the more you engage with things, the more you're shown more of that type of content. And I think loosely based, that's how we're working with segmentation, which then drives personalization. So it's understanding from multiple different touch points, multiple different engagement points, what is now more relevant to you, or what is less relevant to you is probably much more important. So yeah, I guess those are kind of two examples. One's the welcome journey. It's very kind of click, 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 and we change that experience. And the other is that it's uses machine learning. It's all about inherent cohorts, and it's all about then delivering an experience from there. And there are some really simple things we do. And honestly, we've had a lot of success with the really simple stuff, like recently viewed. I know Amazon have been doing it for ages, but that idea of we realize that people come back again and again and again. The average time between visiting the site and buying is 30 days. So on average, it's a month, and people will do on average 6 to 7 visits and spend 5 minutes on site. So we were like, okay, if you keep coming back and you have to keep going through the nav to find that product, that's a little bit annoying. So why don't we just personalize that experience by putting your recently viewed so you can get back to that super quick. So yeah, there's kind of from the very complicated to the very simple.
Totally. And all of it makes a difference. I think about it, and consumers not only expect brands to deliver personalized experiences, I'm pretty sure they're demanding it at this point is what the research is showing. So it's awesome to see how you guys are kind of operationalizing it on a lot of different levels.
Yeah, and I think like we try to, you can kind of have this idea, but what we've tried to do is do lots of tests with it as well. So we did one recently where we launched a limited edition product from one of our athletes. So it's designed in his colorway, it's branded in his colorway. Fabio Vetma, the enormous YouTube star, and we launched that behind a membership login with the idea, obviously that product was very scarce and we wanted it to feel unique, and we wanted people in the community to be able to have access to it. But the insight that we gathered from that was, we could see what bike, if people bought that bike and they previously bought things, what other bikes they had bought. And that started to teach us about kind of preference, rebuy rates, and that's it's incredibly important for us then to say, okay, this group of people, how might we speak to them later on? What might they be interested in? And then you're not delivering spam, you're not sending them every single newsletter, you're not delivering advertising that's not relevant and timely. And I think that's it. We don't want to do things that are annoying and wasteful. It's all about communicating at the right time in the right way about the right thing that is of interest to me, because we know so much about our consumers and our users.
It's awesome. It's like a shift from quantity to quality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I really love. From a marketing perspective, what are some of the engagement methods and channels that have worked well recently?
I've had a lot of success recently with paid search. Just understanding and using paid search to really test markets and test engagements. And with COVID as well, a really simple thing of leaving in paid search to show we have bikes in stock. So obviously with the pandemic hitting last year in March, we saw enormous growth throughout the year. I think with people being locked down, wanting to exercise, stay healthy, both physically and mentally, given the stresses of the situation over the course of the year, we saw a lot of demand, and with all the bike shops being shut for probably, I think, about 3 or 4 months as well. That was kind of for us being a direct to consumer brand, it was an amazing period of time. And paid search really helps us learn, okay, which markets are developing, where do we have stock, how do we want to move inventory around, and how are people engaging with these ads, and to be quite frank, to move in where the competition couldn't perform, and maybe SEO will take a lot longer. We've then leveraged a couple of other things like back in stock's been amazing for us. So it is email, but it's highly automated based on what inventory is coming in. And then it's a really simple communication to say, hey, this bike's back in stock. But given the demand that we have, we can, we collect that email address at a product, well, at a country, a product, and a size and a color level. So then we got really smart with that. And if you go on the site now, you can sign up for that, but then we offer similar bikes. And then if that bike doesn't come back in, the algorithm in the back end then says, hey, this bike's not coming in, but this is one in your size, in a color and a model that we think you might be most interested in based on kind of previous purchase data. So yeah, emails like the new QR code, it's having a resurgence. But I think it's, people have underestimated the power of email, because it is a unique identifier for myself. I log into my Gmail every day. I check those emails. Whereas I think the industry and marketing got really kind of sucked in by kind of the Facebook model, broad-based advertising. And I've been saying to my team, I'm like, we got to plan for a cookieless world. We have to have first-party cookies. I think there's going to be more and more restrictions on platforms. So you have to, I think in 5 years' time, Google won't have an auction-based model as they have based on keywords. You will buy into an audience. And if you don't understand your audience, you literally can't buy from them. And obviously they'll build tools to help you understand that. But I think from our perspective, that email is vitally important. So that is now, and I think will be a very important channel for us.
100%. And I like that you said channel plus message, and there's also intelligence powered in there, which I think is a pretty good combination. So yeah. John, as you work to grow your consumer understanding and deliver, relevant marketing, what's top of mind going forward?
I think how we can manage the supply chain at the moment, how we can deliver a great customer experience in a way that meets the demand and meets the expectations of our customers. So we've made some refinements in how we present products on the site. How we deliver product to market is always the most important. So my objectives are always product launches. Just make sure we design the best experience. And I think more and more that will become not just about the purchase experience. So we've got a new launch coming tomorrow morning. If you want to tune in for that, it's amazing new gravel bike product that we're bringing to market, and the team have done a phenomenal job of that. But I think what I'm most proud of is, Simon and I have really worked hard with the rest of the business to move more into service. So to help the consumer build the product and maintain the product, and if they have to, then fix the product. But we've almost thought through all of the challenges that you would had from researching all the way to using, fixing, repairing, and then even bringing back in and trading in and trading up your product. So I think that's really important for us to, maintaining a relationship that's 10 years long, it's not year by year. Loyalty and retention as a factor of NPS, I think's really top of my mind at the moment. I think we need to find ever more smarter ways to acquire customers more cheaply. That's just the constant bottom line, reduce that cost of acquisition cost and increase the lifetime value. And NPS is an amazing indicator of that. So we're constantly changing our merchandising strategies and our comm strategies to make sure that NPS number is constantly ticking up, because we see it has a direct impact on lifetime value, and it ultimately impacts our margin. So yeah, I would say those are the things that are top of mind: retention and loyalty, and making sure we deliver the right products at the right time.
Well, that is incredible. And thank you so much for being with us today, John. I look forward to seeing what you guys do in the future, but we really appreciate having you here.